Let's welcome in our co-host, the Admiral Bill Stubblefield. William.
Good morning, Rob. Great to be here. Wonderful day indeed.
New York Times best-selling author John Gilstrap.
Good morning.
Pleasure to have you gentlemen in the room here today. And it's the support you give me each morning when you come in at 7:30. It's the love and the kindness, the empathy and the sympathy that I just feel. The warmth that exudes from the two of you is equivalent to, I think, that chilly water the Titanic hit when it hit the iceberg and went into the cold. That's how I feel.
That's
what you extend
as well as you should. The issue every morning is not if we bow down to you, it's how low we bow down to you. If we're not on our knees groveling, we're too high.
It's when Rob asked the question, what you time if longest when you in your life, and when we push back, he gets mad because we didn't know what he was actually asking us. So.
And this went on for the better part of 30 minutes, and we did not know what you were talking about, and we were not giving you the answer you wanted.
Communication is my strong point. It's what I do for a living.
In case people in radio land and TV land didn't know, Rob has to get up at 3:20 every morning. Every morning for the last 15 years.
But he doesn't tell us about it.
He suffers in silence.
Yeah, very stoic.
Silence.
Very stoic.
That's the thing about me that most people don't know. It's my silence.
At least he's not calling us to tell us that he's waking up at 3:20.
I just got up this morning. It's 3:43. Just got up. Are you up? Get up.
Well, I can assure you, the way the two of you just manipulated the truth, you will be getting calls Monday morning at 3:20. I can promise you both.
Good luck with that. There's a do not disturb function on my phone.
Oh, if we can hack into the Defense Department's text, we can take care of yours easily, Gilstrap. I'm sure you've got a lot less security than they have. Or maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Who knows? Let's welcome in our first guest, Bill Powell, former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District. Bill, good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Good morning, Rob. Great to see you.
Thank you for not coming in empty-handed as well, too. This is the mother load of donuts this morning, right?
I never come in empty-handed when I'm here.
20 pounds worth of donuts, the way it feels right now.
I feel bad that I didn't make it personally, but, you know.
You have done that in the past,
I have.
though. You're quite the baker.
Uh-huh.
Have you taken courses?
I have.
Where did Blue Ridge?
Blue Ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chef Stephen's pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive, and I've taken several classes there, and cooking is kind of therapy for me, so it's always good.
Yeah. What do you? Are you more like pastries or entrees or what?
A lot of breads, a lot of those kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
and then some pizza, things like that. So comfort foods,
Stuff that involves dough.
something involving dough.
You can't lose with dough.
Yes,
back in the 80s, there was that big thing with bread makers. That everybody had a bread maker, and we got a bread maker, and we all put on like 8 pounds, so we had to get rid of the bread maker.
It's like the first time you fell in love with peanut butter.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's what this does.
Sourdough, it's
I love sourdough.
And I have a very very scientifically defined sourdough recipe, and I keep it going all the time. And
Sourdough sounds like it shouldn't taste good, but it does.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's better for you than a lot of the other stuff.
You were the Northern U.S. Attorney for the Northern District. You and Bill Ehlenfeld, I think, have kind of handed that position off.
We keep going back and forth, yes.
Because we haven't reelected a president in a while, I guess, since Obama's second term. So that job changes with each presidential change party.
Correct. Bill Ehlenfeld was there during Obama. Then he resigned. I got there with President Trump. And then when President Biden came in, Ehlenfeld got the job back.
And now President Trump is back. When is it typical for these positions to get filled?
I'm not sure anything is typical these days down in Washington, but the last time it happened, and I was part of the first group, I got sworn in October of the year following inauguration, or the year of the inauguration. But you kind of got word in sometime that summer, so I'm guessing spring or summer people will be filling spots.
Are you expressing interest for this position this time around?
I have expressed interest, and we'll see what happens. Lots of qualified people out there, but I've told Senator Capito and Senator Justice that I was interested, and we'll see what happens.
Is that how that works? You go through your senators?
That's how it worked last time. I'm not sure how it works now, but that's what I've done. So, my name's out there, but if I don't get it, I'm sure it'll be in qualified hands, but I really cared about the district, loved the job. It was the only job I'll go out of retirement for, is back to that one.
That's cool. Well, those are two pretty good senators to have some pull with, because Senator Capito is the fourth ranking And Jim Justice has Donald Trump's cell phone number. We know that because he's told us that many times.
So for somebody who's indicted in December of an election year and the administration changes and there's not a U.S. attorney on federal charges and there's not a U.S. attorney until October, does that mean there's no progress in that case for those 10 months?
They go to the prison in El Salvador
No,
for that.
they have a acting U.S. attorney, which the Northern District has now, and I think the Southern District also has. So there's a first assistant U.S. attorney. That's normally the person that would take over, and in this case, it's Randy Bernard in the Northern District.
So the process continues.
The process continues. Some of these districts are the president's appointing interim U.S. attorneys. That's slightly different. They're somebody in waiting until the background and everything get checked out.
What makes the job so attractive, Bill? You said offline is one of the best jobs you've had.
It is the best job I've had. And it was a lot of things. I kind of said off the air that you're working on really important stuff. You're working for people you care about, in this case, the people in West Virginia. The people that I worked with were second to none. They were outstanding. And it was a leadership position that I've always loved and got to kind of really learn more about myself and become, I think, a better leader.
Now, talking about leadership, you're writing a book on leadership, are you not?
I am.
And from what source of your life's experience are you drawing most from?
All of it. I think that the book is going to be for new leaders as opposed to people who've been doing it a while. But I've seen really good leaders and I've seen really bad leaders. But I've had leadership positions in nonprofits and law firms, public service, all of those things. And what I'd like to do is I'll always take the best from the best leaders and adopt them, steal those traits, however you want to put it, to make myself a better person. So what I'm trying to do is putting all those types of steps or rules in this book to help people kind of get a feel for what leadership is.
You said being a better person. Can you be a good leader and not being a good person?
I think it's pretty tough. I mean, you got to really hide yourself. I think the temporary title of the book, it's not about you. That's what the title is. So it kind of gives you an insight as to the kind of thing that I think leadership is. I think good leaders make the people that work for them better. That's their goal all the time. If you make your people better, the organization's better. But leaders who are, self-centered or, looking to just the next step and getting a lot of praise, making sure they get a lot of praise, those aren't really particularly good leaders in my view.
Now, a leadership in Attorney General's office obviously is different than you're in a law firm for several years, and also you worked with a lot of nonprofits. Are there distinct differences that you should focus on in these various types of environments, or the basic part of leadership will that transcend all of them?
I think there's certainly a bunch of carryover that will be common amongst all of these organizations for good leaders. Obviously, the goals of the organization may be different. If you're a for-profit company or law firm or whatever, you're going to have certain goals and you're going to kind of go towards those. Similarly, a nonprofit, you have other types of goals. But if you get the right people marching in the same direction, it's pretty much the same.
In my experience, coming up through the fire service, there are, I think, I'll put this in the form of a question. Do you agree that there are elements to leadership that are natural? There are people that it doesn't matter what they've got, what regalia they've got on their collars or what color shirt they wear, that sort of thing. There are people that others will follow, irrespective of what their rank and their official responsibilities are. What is that X factor, do you think?
I'm not sure what it is, but you're actually absolutely correct in that. I've experienced it myself. The one of the things that I've always said is kind of a test to see who, the good leaders. When the people, quote unquote, below them in the chain of command would hate to do something to disappoint that leader, that's a sign of a good leader.
Right.
So, that's obviously a signal. I mean, I think that a person can become a better leader, but some of us are more natural at it. I mean, from a personality standpoint, you have some people are very much quiet and introverts, and they have a different style, obviously, than a big extrovert. But I think most people can become better leaders.
Born, what they call them, born leader, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with. I mean, I've seen a lot of really smart people that you would think would be a great leader, but end up being terrible leaders.
I thought, going from high school to college, if you can remember that time in your life, you may have slotted in a pecking order somewhere in high school, and you get to college and you think, oh, it's a new, fresh start. But in general, you tend to slot in. I think the way I observe people, you kind of slotted in college the way you were when you were in high school. And the kids that I thought were leaders in high school were also leaders in college, and no doubt went on to be leaders in the places that they work. I think that part is born. I think that's DNA of some sort, and I'm not sure what happens or causes it. The same answer you gave me, John, when I said, what separates the New York Times bestselling authors from the person who writes a book and sells maybe 1,000 copies? What is that X factor? And the answer is nobody can quantify that, and that's fascinating. But I agree with you. People can learn to become better leaders, but there are some where it just comes more naturally, as you said.
Absolutely correct.
And then there are distinctly different skill sets between leadership, and we take a good leadership and we promote them into an administrator position or a manager position.
This happens to salespeople all the time.
And that's an entirely different thing than leading people.
No, there's no question about it. That's one of the things I write about, and that is that sometimes these organizations, and let's say law firm, for instance, that's just what I'm most familiar with. You find your best lawyer, and then you take him from doing that, put him in some kind of leadership position, so he no longer does what he's really great at, but he's doing something else, which he's sometimes not very good at. It's just the nature of the beast. So that's
what we used to call the Peters principle
Yeah.
back in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, you rise to your next level of incompetence. But in the case that you're giving there, we used to, when I was in a sales office with 16, 17 sales reps, the most successful sales rep always got promoted to sales manager, whether or not they had managerial skills or not. And as you say, you take your best performer and then you take them out of the field under the theory that, well, if they're good at it, they must be able to teach other people the same thing. And it's not the truth.
not at all the truth. By the way, the word manager is like stricken from my book, because I've always kind of been not offended, but when they say I'm a manager, I'm like, well, you manage inventory, you manage finances, you don't really manage people. You lead people or you don't. Or you can supervise them,
Wrangle them.
but you don't. Manager is something that I think is a word that probably shouldn't be used.
Do you get into the psychology of personality makeups and such, and the psychology of leadership in your book?
On the fringes, I mean, with respect to types of people that you run into in leadership positions, the micromanager, some of those kinds of characteristics that people have. Go through a series of those types of things, but this is not a Wharton School of Business leadership book with respect to a bunch of case studies and other things. This is a much more practical, in your face kind of 13 good ideas to incorporate if you want to be a good leader.
Is that the name of the book?
No, it's not about you is the name of the book.
It's not about you. And when can we see it?
Hopefully by the end of the year.
All right. How far along are you?
Yeah. Halfway, more than halfway.
How far are you, John, on yours?
More than that.
See, this is new to me. John is the expert at this stuff.
Do you have a publisher?
No, I'm going to self-publish.
Right.
But John could speak to this more than I can. The problem is, I'll do something for a while, then I'll put it down, and then I go back and think, well, that's crappy. I'm going to rewrite that whole section and do it again. So it's a labor of love for me. I've always been really interested in this. I'm pretty passionate about the subject matter, and it's a good exercise for me to try to put it down on paper.
Bill, you mentioned there's 13 chapters. Can I infer from that there are 13 characteristics of a good leader?
That would be incorrect, Bill. But,
okay.
But it was a good guess. But no.
Okay.
I like how you did that. You corrected him, but you let him down easy.
Yeah, he let me down. Yeah, I fell on my face now on the floor. Yeah.
I mean, for instance, like one chapter, like setting expectations. That would be a chapter.
Yeah.
Honest evaluations. That could be a chapter, et cetera. So those are the kinds of things that I think that I'll be talking about.
Is it oversimplification to say there is a universal, that is a trait that is universal to all good leaders?
Good question. I'm not sure there's one trait necessarily. I think that
a series of traits.
I think that the thing that I've recognized over time is that once you accept the fact that you're there to help other people improve for the good of the organization, and that, and like I said, it's not about you being the centerpiece of all that is good in the world, you're on your way. Because I don't understand. What you need to think about is, it's not to show people how amazing you are, it's to show to them how amazing they are in the organization. I think you have better employees, you have happier people, and to be honest with you, you have much more productivity from the organization.
How much does charisma play into a successful leader?
I'm not sure I have any, so I'm not sure. Maybe some. I think some of that is true. I mean, I think people naturally want to follow people who have some charisma.
But it's interesting that in this day and age, if you want to apply for a job somewhere, well, when I was applying for jobs, when we were applying for jobs, you grab your resume, you put on a suit, you make yourself look as good as you can. You go and you walk in, or you get an appointment, and you have a face-to-face interview, and there was a chance for charisma to overcome what might not be exactly the qualification that they're looking for. That doesn't exist anymore. Now it's keywords and everything. The portal is always on a computer. So I think we're kind of engineering charisma out of a lot of
that's
positions.
for getting a job, but not necessarily for leading people in person.
Well, I want to vehemently disagree with you, John, and I'm going to use one example, and that's the President of the United States. He brings a lot of traits that we do not consider as good leaders, as far as honesty, forthrightness, and the like. But what he does bring is charisma to a level that I have never seen before. And as a consequence, he has been elected twice, and his followers is kind of a cult follower. They put so much faith in him.
Keep in mind, he might be applying for a job with the federal government.
I'm deliberately am not asking Bill this question because I don't want to put him on a political hotspot. But I do think what we're seeing with President Donald Trump is something that we thought had gone by the wayside, but it is not. It is front and center now.
I think with politicians, though, it's different. That's a whole different X factor. I've met a number of presidents, and they always fill a room. Part of it is just because of who they are. I remember, God, this goes way, way back. I was at an event in Washington, D.C. when Marion Barry was mayor.
He had charisma.
And that guy walked into the room, and this was when all the stuff was going on. My goodness, you could not look at that man while he was there. He owned the room. There's a thing that some people project.
I think Joe Manchin had that thing. I think Joe Manchin was one of those people, when he came into a room, he really worked it well, and people wanted to pay attention to him when he was in the room.
Yeah, and I think some of that is the statue. Others, I'm going to go back to Trump. Supposedly, in very early days, he had the command of a room. Long before he became president, long before he wrote his book.
I don't think you develop that later in life. I think that's one of those things, you have it or you don't. Bill Powell is our guest, former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District. And, Bill, you're also doing some personal training work.
I am.
Yeah, where are you doing that?
One Life Fitness. Last time I was on, I talked about the hike in Colorado that I had done, and I had programmed my own training for that particular hike, but then something that I was always been interested in, training other people, and spent a few months getting my certification, and said, it's something in my retirement that I would like to do part-time, so that now I'm doing it mostly in the mornings, a lot of older people, not quite as old as Bill necessarily, but older.
I like that.
There are not many in that category, Bill.
And real functional assistance in getting them to where they want to be, and it's been a very rewarding situation.
So I can assume that you buy donuts for others, but you don't eat a whole lot of them yourself.
Yes, I do not. I do not. I like to stay away from that stuff. But I always tell people when I'm training them, I said, if you do your part, now I'll do my part. And your part is not eating a bag of Doritos after the workout.
That's probably a fair point.
Yes. So it's been a blast.
Yeah, well, that's good. How long do you think you'll do that?
I don't know. We'll play. I'm kind of not on any schedule at this point. I'm going to do it until it's not fun.
Maria Lawrenson, one of our co-hosts on Wednesdays with Bill, is going to be hiking the El Camino, and I guess in a few weeks she's going to leave to do that. You've done your share of hiking as well, the Colorado Trail. What advice would you give her? or anybody who wants to go on an extended
Giving
hike.
Maria advice, that's a dangerous ground. No.
She's researched it pretty thoroughly.
Get good shoes, I guess would be the top thing I tell her, but she'll be fine. I mean, the El Camino is good because it passes through towns and it's not very remote. So, and you're with a lot of other people.
Have you ever done part of the El Camino yourself?
I have not. I have not.
It's featured in the movie The Way.
A great movie.
Which is amazing, yes.
A great movie.
Really very touching movie. So,
Take little blisters seriously.
well,
Yes.
Little blisters become big blisters if you don't.
That's exactly right.
So, Bill, in regards to maybe a second run at a U.S. Attorney's position, what do you, timeline-wise, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but is there anything else you can do at this point to promote yourself?
I don't think so. I mean, I think everybody knows. I mean, there are a bunch of candidates out there, I expect, and the process will work out as the process works out. And I expect if they want me, they'll call me.
There's been a pretty aggressive move to get people out of the country who are in gangs and such. This morning they announced that, I think in Virginia, about half an hour outside of D.C., they got the East Coast head of the MS-13 gang was arrested. Will it be easier, quicker, whatever, under this new administration to deal with those types of people?
Well, I think there's going to be an emphasis on it. I never really worry too much about that because we prosecuted on immigration all the time here in West Virginia. Now, we don't have a facility here, and that would really ramp up the number of cases you would have, where a detention center of some type. But when we were involved, and we were involved with some MS-13 folks that came up from Virginia, if they were being indicted for drug trafficking and their immigration status was questionable, they were gone. I mean, that's part of the drill. So it was always listed in the indictment. I don't think we ever not prosecuted a valid immigration case that came across the desk.
From what you see, does ICE have an easier time getting into cities now and to deal with?
I think time will tell. I'm not sure. There are still a bunch of those sanctuary city type cities that not only not prosecute or enforce those laws, but have been ordered to not cooperate with federal officials.
How much dealings did you have with ICE?
Some, although mostly it was other law enforcement agencies as a part of the overall case.
I'm guessing in Northern District, did you have any sanctuary cities at all that you dealt with ever?
No.
Any adjoining cases that you?
Not that I've ever heard of. I think there was one time that we had a case that the person was going to be prosecuted in West Virginia, but they were in New York, and that was apparently presented an issue up there. But that was it.
Final minute. Any final questions for Bill before we say goodbye to him and keep the donuts behind?
No, it's not a question as much as a statement. Bill, always enjoy visiting with you. You're very informative. You're very personable. It's fun to talk to you.
Thank you, Bill. And Bill, thanks very much. Bill ran into me in the supermarket, which he's asked me to come on then, as he was pushing groceries around and listening to Bonnie and doing what she told him.
You said her. Yeah, that's exactly right. Doing what she told me. So.
Well, thanks for coming in, Bill.
Thanks.
And we'll be watching for that book
Yes, sir.
sometime before the end of the year, hopefully, that from Bill Powell. We are